first question is, who are you?
My name is Lee Ngo. I am 39 years old, as of 2 days ago actually, and I am a podcaster and filmmaker based in Portland, Oregon, United States.
Can you tell us a little bit about the city that you're living in? Like
Sure.
if someone's gonna come to you, like how would you appeal your city?
Oh my gosh. So if someone were to come to Portland, the first thing I would want them to do is to leave Portland. And what I mean is Portland is in the center of a lot of nature. So we like to go outdoors, hiking, fishing. We are 1 hour from the beach, 1 hour from the mountains. But Portland itself is a very small, big city in a way. A lot of great food, very calm and nice people. I was born and raised in Oregon, and you're probably wondering, my parents are not from America, they're from Vietnam. So, but I was born there, so I have a little bit of America, a little bit of Vietnam identity too.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said podcaster, so
Yes.
what's your specialty or specific subject that you do podcasts about?
Yes, so I work for a podcast for an education technology company, and I have a little bit of a background in software development and coding, so I talk to a lot of people who are also in software development about their lives, and I learn how to be very empathetic and compassionate about the stories they want to tell on my podcast.
Okay, and I'm going to ask a little more personal things
Okay.
now. So, what is the happiest memory of your life? Just a happy moment.
Right. Well, I'm not young, so I have a lot of memories. I think one of the first that came to mind, I would say, when I got into university. I got into the school I eventually went into very late, and in America, you either receive a small letter which says no, or a big packet which says absolutely yes. And I actually already knew where I was going to go, and there was another good school. But then after I graduated from high school, I get the big packet from my dream school. And I think it was a happy memory for me, but it was very happy for my family too, because we really were patient and hoping that would work out.
And what is the saddest memory of your life?
Oof. Yeah, also, these are also very difficult to talk about because, but I think it also relates to what we'll talk about today. So I'm trying to think. I will say for sure the saddest memory that comes to mind, I think, is the passing of my grandmother in 2018. And it wasn't a surprise, but that didn't make it any less difficult for my family and I to process. She was a big part of my life and a big part of everyone's lives. So losing her took a lot of work to come back from that moment. Yeah.
What makes you angry?
Let's see. I'm very impatient. So if people agree upon things and then they decide to change at the last minute or don't follow through, that like a lack of accountability, I guess that's something that really makes me upset. Yeah, I'll leave it there for now. There's a lot of, I get upset very easily, but that one big thing is, if people are late but we didn't say what time, that's not their fault. But if we said 4 o'clock, that's when we're going, and they show up at 5 o'clock without letting me know anything, then I'm very upset. Yeah.
What are you angry about yourself?
What am I angry about with myself? Sorry, so don't do that, of course. Sorry, let me try again. I think I'm angry about my lack of discipline. So, fun fact about me, I used to do Taekwondo, and I look back at the time when I was okay at school to when I was very good at school was when I was in Taekwondo, because I learned discipline. But when I went to university, I did a little Taekwondo, and my grades were still good, and then I quit because I wanted to do other things. And when I did, I lost that discipline. So nowadays, as an adult, I know I can do a lot of things, but everything takes focus and hard work, and I'm not as good as I used to be at that.
Okay. And what excites you? What makes you happy?
This is actually, I've been struggling with this question of what gets me excited, especially at my age. And I think, especially after going through the pandemic, a lot of my life was, am I just going to stay at home and work from home and that's going to be it? But I discovered a lot about myself, and one is that there will always be a way for me to be creative about something. I think that's what I get excited about, is that I will always find a way to make things interesting again. Because to me, boredom is almost like a feeling that is a sign that, okay, now it's time to do something interesting. I'm here in Korea because I wanted to celebrate my birthday in an interesting way. Very expensive, but I did it because I knew that I would not maybe have an opportunity again in the future. So this was the time to do it.
I thought you came here for the conference.
The conference was like icing on the cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember what were your dreams when you were young?
Oh, yeah. I dreamed when I was young to become a filmmaker. I made films when I was 11 years old, 12 years old, and they were terrible but amazing films. I once resaw a film that I made and I shared it with people at a film festival, and they laughed and they thought it was silly, but then they made a DCP of it, they made a copy of it and showed it on the 35mm screen. That is the mark of someone who becomes a filmmaker, is when you see your film on the big screen. And they were laughing at it, and they saw me when I was 10 years old with glasses and dumb hair and all that. And I was laughing too, because I was like, the joke's on everyone. I just had my dream happen.
So now that you're a filmmaker, but is there any specific dream that you're dreaming at the moment?
At the moment, I'm taking a pause on that, because I think dreams are wonderful, but I do think that sometimes you can get so obsessed with a dream that it makes you miss out on life. Right? You get so focused that you start to ignore what's really important about it, that there's a lot of gifts all around you. So in a lot of ways, I think a little bit less about dreams and a little bit about my destiny, right? And more about just admire everything around you and find inspiration wherever you may find it. To stop holding on so tightly and let go and see what happens. I know that's a weird answer, but that's honestly what's been happening with myself lately. I mean, it's very midlife crisis probably, but completely where my head is at, I think I really was focused on being a filmmaker, and now I realize that can mean a lot of different things. I just have to go explore and find out that meaning. Yeah.
And now we are getting into the questions about BTS.
Finally. Everything I'm saying is about BTS if you really think about it. Just saying.
So how did you get to know about BTS at first?
Sure. So my journey into BTS is actually fairly typical for many people. I, in 2019, was going through some very difficult times, and I'll be open about it. I was actually getting divorced, and I was also getting let go from my dream job. I was running a nonprofit supporting people in my city with like career development and technology. I thought I had everything, and then when I had everything, I was like, why do I still feel strange? And so suddenly, very quickly, I lost a lot of the things I thought I had, and I was very sad about that. I go to Canada, and my best of friends, who I admire on so many levels, shows me BTS's Boy With Love. And I was like, what are you doing? We're too cool for this. Like, why are you into K-pop now? And he looks at me and says, you don't understand yet. And so he showed me more videos, more documentaries, more video essays that explained why BTS is so sophisticated. Now, neither of us are Korean. We are both Chinese Vietnamese people who grew up in the same town in Oregon. But for some reason, this messaging, this story connected with us. And so after I left Canada, went home, I started doing my own work and started to watch more and listen more. And I think the moment for me that really tied it in was, a lot of people call it BTS trash. I think it's treasures. But it's like content that fans make about the members. And one of them is just videos upon videos of people crying, of the members crying. And not crying for sadness, crying for joy, right? Like the way that at the end of the concert, they will cry about how happy they are to do these moments. And I wanted that too, so I started to cry too. Then I would watch more and more videos and realize this is what I've been needing, I needed to cry at this very sad moment in my life. And from there, I just started feeling a lot better. And that's when my fandom was very secure in BTS.
And ARMY is a very specific thing, so like being a fan is one thing, but feeling like, yes, I'm an ARMY is, I think, another leap in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not every fan should be an army, but I'm wondering
Right.
whether there is a moment that you felt like, yes, I'm an army.
So I want to challenge that point that Army is a certain level of fandom, because I know a lot of Army too, and I sometimes will have discourse about how we should be. And I think the whole point of being in BTS and being into Army is that you are enough. Like whatever you think is your passion within this fandom is enough. So for me, for example, I don't like to buy a lot of stuff because it's great, but I don't feel that attachment into it. But some people like to buy everything, and I'm like, okay, that's you. I like to go to concerts. Some people don't like to go to concerts. Some people like to learn the language. I'm struggling with that, but it's not a high priority for me. But I think in a lot of ways, there is a element of community that comes with it. And there are main tenets of being an Army for me. It has less to do with what you're doing to be part of the fandom and more about what kind of person you want to be and how you want to believe. And for me, anyone that doesn't know BTS, we're very kind, almost to a crazy fault. Like we want to be extremely nice to each other and be supportive and also be in on the same jokes and know about like what all the individual members are up to. And there's a level of community that is formed instantly from the shared joy. And that's what it's been a lot for me and the other people that I meet. Regardless of age, regardless of background, they all understand almost like this vernacular of BTS, and I think that's what I hold most sacred to it. Sorry, I did it again. BTS has certainly changed my life. I think the most profound way, and there's no too late point when it comes to how they can affect you, is, for me, I didn't grow up thinking I was the most manly, desirable, coolest person in the room. I was always something else, and I had to fit that kind of a role. When I discovered BTS in its variety and its multiple personalities, I started to be okay, not just with who I am, but who I could be or who I could return to, right? There's fluidity, there is ambiguity, there is a lot about one's identity and one's overall imposter syndrome and sense of crises in themselves that this, as a K-pop group, addresses head on. And that has been incredibly helpful. And that was what was good for my friend, who, again, coolest guy in the world. But the messaging of what BTS did for him helped him feel a little better in his skin. And that made me at least give it consideration. And now I would say I'm an even bigger BTS fan than he is, to the point where he's a little bit alarmed by me. But I don't care. I'm doing fine,
So, what is your number one BTS song?
Ooh, number one. See, you have these. All of your questions have been the one thing, and this is hard because I like many. There's the solos. There's the big group anthems. I will give you three answers. Is that okay? Okay. So I would say, I'm going to give you four answers. The first song that I heard that got me into him was "Boy with Love," so that will always be special to me. But I still love the song because it's just a beautiful tribute to the people who have loved them for so long. And they have no obligation to do that, and they do it anyway. I personally was in a way, emotionally rescued by Save Me and I'm Fine. And I like to think of them as one song that are in two parts, that are in two tones, two messages, because they speak to the different dialectics of what it means to be so deeply sad and still hanging on to everything. And then the other one is to just fully embrace yourself and just turn yourself towards the light. To me, that's wonderful. And I like to always listen to them together so that I don't get too lost in one or the other. So my bias is Suga, and his song Trivia Seesaw is one of my favorites amongst the solos. Because, and I can't believe I'm admitting this, I'm very romantic, but I'm also very challenged when it comes to relationships. So that song is about a very sad relationship that is about to end. And I find generally the work that Suga does to be vulnerable for someone who both can sing and can dance. And he's actually singing for the most part all on that song. And that is to me a form of vulnerability that is rare for someone like him and what he contributes to the band too. So sorry, I know you wanted one song, but you'll have to choose amongst those four.
Okay. So if you meet BTS in person, what do you want to say to them?
I don't know if I should ever meet BTS in person. I'll be very honest. I actually am starting to believe in the notion of never meet your heroes, because I would be terrified because there's what they have become in my head and who they are, and as someone who's in the film world, terrible about meeting people who I have admired for a long time, because I build them up in my head, and then give them too much pressure to actually be at that level when they're just people, right? And so that's the big thing, is like I need to train myself to think that these 7 gentlemen are just people who are just going through their own lives and are largely isolated from the world aside from each other, right? And so it makes for an interesting dynamic. But if somehow that were to happen, if I were ever to, I think if I were ever to meet BTS, my hope is at that moment I would know a lot more Korean so that I could be able to talk to everybody. I don't want to, as someone who only speaks mostly English, I don't want it to be like it is in America, where you just hear RM speaking all the time and then he translates for everybody. My goal would to want to connect with them and just to kind of get them to know them a little bit more. And the goal would be to find a way to make each of them laugh in some way.
Okay, I can promise you that when you become fluent in Korean, you will meet them.
You're making that promise?
Yeah. So
I would like to see
yeah,
that. I would like to see that in writing, please. Because if it just takes being fluent in Korean to make BTS, that's a promise that you shouldn't be making.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna take more than 10 years.
Oh my God! For me to become fluent,
Yeah.
I could do it in 3.
Let's see.